Hello everyone. This video is about Isaiah 13 through 27. It's an overview video, 13 through 27, to give a big picture of this section. So 1 through 5 was the introduction, hitting some of the major themes. Chapter 6 of Isaiah was the calling of Isaiah and the commissioning of Isaiah. 7 through 12, remember, was the oracle given during the time of Ahaz. Okay? The Emmanuel prophecy and all that during the time of Ahaz. Chapters 36 through 39 are about the events that happened during the time of King Hezekiah, who is the son of King Ahaz. So we have 7 through 12 on King Ahaz, 36 through 39 on King Hezekiah. So the section in between is where we're entering to, and it's 13 through 35, okay? But 13 through 35 is a big chunk. I'm going to cut it up to 13 through 27. 13 through 27 is about the oracles. Okay? 13 through 27 is Isaiah's kind of cover all these various nations and tell what's going to happen to them. And it's going to set a stage for a worldwide judgment that would usher in the Lord's kingdom on earth. Okay? These judgments on nation is just not random judgment, but it's supposed to prepare the way for the Lord's kingdom on earth. So in other words, these are oracles of condemnation, of doom for the nations, but it's an announcement for the salvation for Israel if she trusts in the Lord. Okay? So the overarching idea behind this is that it will be foolish for Israel to trust in nations whom God has doomed. Okay, so the oracles against nations are supposed to encourage Israel to rely in the Lord. Now, I'm going to put up a chart. I don't know, maybe in the description. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but there's going to be a chart, and I want you to look at this chart. Okay, this is from Isaiah 13 through 27, and it's divided into 3 columns. And first thing I want to note is that the first 2 columns, right? The first left column and the middle column, there are 10 boxes, and each of these 10 boxes are divided thus because of the word masa, the Hebrew word masa, which means oracle or a prophecy in English translation. The word masa is relatively a rare word in Hebrew Bible, unless you use it in a verbal sense, but this is not verbal sense. It means an oracle. And this relatively rare word appears 10 times in chapters 13 through 23. That's why I have 10 boxes here. Each box has the word masa, oracle, in the beginning of it. Okay? This point helps us see some important points. First, each of the 2 left columns, the left column and the middle column, they both begin with Babylon. Okay, and the fourth row of the left column and the middle column, they deal with Israel. Okay, I have Damascus and Ephraim on the first column, but really it's about Damascus, but Ephraim's destiny is joined to Damascus. So Ephraim is sharing the destiny of Damascus. And why? Probably because Ephraim joined the Syro-Ephraimite coalition to attack Judah. So partners in crime are suffering the same destiny. Okay, so the fourth boxes, Damascus, Ephraim, and in the middle column, the Valley of Vision is about Jerusalem. So the fourth boxes are about Israel. The first boxes are about Babylon. Okay, I want you to note one more thing on the first column, on the left column, that Israel is surrounded by peoples of the world. Look, Babylon, the first one, is the kingdom on the north. Philistia is the kingdom on the west. Moab is the kingdom on the east, and Egypt is on the kingdom on the south of Israel. So, the selection of these countries are intentional to suggest that Israel occupies the central place in God's plans. This arrangement suggests that Israel occupies the central place in God's plans. So the judgment on these nations are not to be understood in isolation from Israel. Israel is in the center place of God's redemptive plan, and these judgments on these nations are also to be understood in connection with what are the implications for Israel. Okay, and not just because Israel is in the middle column, middle of this column, but also we'll get there. But if you look at, like, say for example, the Oracle of Babylon, in the middle of talking about Babylon, there's these two random verses stuck in the middle, right in the middle, that talk about Israel's restoration. Same thing about Philistia. God talks about the destiny of Philistia, and at the end it talks about Zion. Okay, so we see this repetition in the first column that Israel takes the central place in God's plan. The second column, let's move on to the second column. The second column projects these principles revealed in the first column into the farther future. Okay, so moving from a more historical concrete names to the more obscure and enigmatic allusions. What I mean by that is, look at the first row. On the left column it says Babylon, simply because the text says Babylon. Okay, it's an oracle on Babylon. But in chapter 21, we know it's about Babylon, but it says it's an oracle on the desert by the sea. Desert by the sea. Okay, so it's kind of unclear and a little obscure. Why? And same thing with Edom and Arabia. Sometimes we know what these oracles are about because later we have a different name for, the name of the, we get hints later in the oracle what this oracle is about, Babylon or Edom or Arabia. But it's not made clear, it's a little obscure, and more importantly, it seems to move more farther into the future. What I mean by that is, in the first column, we have more concrete near future events of Isaiah. In the second column, we have more obscure events that seems to be speaking of these nations, but also about an eschatological future, like eschatological judgment. And if you look at in the third column, it's even more obscure and it's clearly eschatological. Okay, it's clearly the city of God and the final gathering. It's clearly eschatological. So we see that Isaiah is arranging chapters 13 through 27 in a way that moves from more specific to less specific, longer to shorter, and more clear to less clear. Does that make sense? So, and I owe my debt to Maurer, a commentator on Isaiah, who saw this pattern, and I think is a very useful pattern to help us see what we're diving into. Chapters 13 through 27 is a big chunk. It's the biggest chunk of literary text we have seen so far, and I hope this will help you. And I will come back to this chart at least at the beginning of each column, but even more frequently perhaps as we go down. So make sure you look at the chart on your own, read it, understand it, digest it. It should help you a lot as we go on. Now, we covered the overview of 13 through 27. We're gonna go through the zoom in to chapters 13 through 14, which is the first oracle on Babylon.